Okay, this is the September 13 special meeting of the Board of Estimate and Taxation. If the clerk is available, may we have a roll call?
Mayor Rilling,
Present.
Ed Abrams,
Here.
Sherry Brown,
Here.
Edwin Camacho,
Here.
James Frere, Troy Jelleret,
Here.
Artie Kasimis.
Here.
6 present, you have a quorum.
Start with the approval of the minutes. Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
The matter's been moved. The minutes of August 2nd, 2021. Are there any changes, amendments, deletions, etc.? Yeah, Sherry? You're on mute, I believe, Sherry. Oh,
Yeah.
you're on mute.
It noted that I was not present, but I was at that meeting.
Okay.
And I just have a couple of things, Troy.
Okay.
On page 3, with the paragraph starting later in the page, Mr. Camacho said it appears Oak Hills is doing well. The next sentence, it says, he noted that gold is very seasonal. It should be golf is very seasonal.
I think gold is too, though, isn't it?
Is it? It could be. And then the last sentence, just an add, it said, he said it would be good if they pay the city, and I believe it should be what was owed, what it is owed, what it is owed. Or what was owed, I should say.
Well, it's what is owed because it's still technically owed, right?
The city, what was owed. Yeah, that could just add what in there and
Yeah.
take out.
Yeah.
Is.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, what is owed, yeah.
And that's it for me.
All right, is there anything else? All right, all in favor of approving the minutes of the August 2nd special meeting of the Board of Estimate and Taxation as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
I need to
right.
abstain because I wasn't present, Ed.
All right, so Ed abstains, the motion carries, and the minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda, there's nothing on the special appropriations agenda, but there are matters on the transfer agenda. That would be on page 5 of our packet. And the first set of transfers, I believe there are a couple of transfers. So the first transfer is the building management department. Is there someone here from the building management to speak on this issue? There's a total of $8,935 in transfers being requested.
I am Alan Lowe.
Hey, Alan, that's a great
Yeah.
background.
Oh, yeah, it's my fish tank.
It actually matches your shirt. So do you want to tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, I gathered from this from my staff. What happened is back in February, so there's some problem with the elevator and fire headquarters. It's not to the point that we need to put it out service, but we need some replacement parts. And we ordered the part, I think it's February, for both of them. One is a push button control panel. The other one is a relay. They ship it to us, found the wrong one. Then we reordered, but the parts are back ordered. That's all it is.
Okay, so you're looking to carry this over into the 2021, into the 21-22 budget.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions concerning that? I'm sorry, the matter hasn't been moved. Would someone move the item?
So moved.
All right, it's been moved by
Ed.
Ed again. Okay. Are there any questions
Nope.
concerning it? No questions. All right, so there are 2 transfers one from account 014071-5561 for to account 014071-5561. Is that the same account?
It's a year-to-year transfer, so I
Oh, it's a
actually,
year-to-year transfer. That's right. So the accounts would be the same. So the total transfers amount to $8,935. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries, and the matters are carried over into the next fiscal year budget.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. The next item is a transfer totaling $45,000 from contingency involving a Parks and Rec.
Let me,
Rec and Park.
I'm sorry. Do you need a motion first, Ed?
I'll
Yes.
move it.
It's been
I'll move
moved. Thank you, Henry. Is there anyone here to speak on that, on those transfers?
I'll start, and I think Ken Hughes will follow up. Last year I discovered, I thought our separate funds were WPCA and the Parking Authority. And I found out we had a separate fleet fund. So segregated in our accounting system was something for fleet. And I chatted with Anthony Carr, and under Public Works, they have a separate fleet department, fleet maintenance manager that is monitoring all of the fleet vehicles. And I made the decision to close out that separate fund and put that budget under Public Works, reporting up to Anthony Carr. And then Ken pointed out to me that there were certain items that were part of that fleet fund budget that he controls regarding Parks and Rec, and he asked that those funds be moved from Public Works to his Parks and Rec, and that's what we intend to do. We're moving it from contingency, and then we're going to move from Parks and Rec back into, from Public Works back into contingency to make that whole. So Ken, if you'd like to address that.
Henry, thank you. You did a very thorough job in your explanation. Just to give you an example, we have some unique equipment that we use over in the Parks Department. For example, a lot of our smaller mowers, fleet doesn't have the ability to fix any of the tires. They don't have that equipment. So as superintendent of Rec and Parks, it's my job to get the equipment repaired. So I have to bring it to our own vendors. Prior to this, it was taken out of the fleet maintenance account. But since that was, taken away as of July 1, I have no means to pay for these smaller repairs that we sort of have to do on our own.
Okay. So the monies that were in the fleet fund were, then they, where did those monies go? Did they drop back to the city account, or did they go to, I'm sorry, what was the other department that you mentioned?
Ed, what happened was, historically, we budgeted funds for this fleet fund, and that's where they were drawn down when the expenditures were made. So for fiscal year 22, we shut down that fund, and we put those budgeted dollars, whatever we were going to budget, under the fleet manager in Department of Public Works.
Got it.
Ken pointed out there was a little bit of a hole. Not all of it should gone to Public Works. So we're just shifting some to his control, so he has the dollars for the maintenance that he's in charge of.
And why? And then, so is it not doable to just transfer the monies from Public Works into Parks and Rec? Is there a reason why it needs to go from contingency and then have the Public Works deposit that money back into contingency?
I would have done it that way. This is the way it was arranged and set up on the agenda. I would like to move it from Public Works back into contingency. This should not be using any of the contingency money. It's really a shift from one area of Public Works to another.
Okay.
I would add, you know what, go forward. I'll add something at the end.
Okay, I have no other questions unless anyone else has any questions.
Just a clarification, Henry. So are you saying you're going to withdraw this transfer and resubmit it as a?
No. Let's vote on this. let's move the money so Ken has it right away, but we will backfill this and move it from Public Works fleet accounts into contingency to make them whole.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the clarification.
Sure.
Are there any other questions?
No.
Henry, did you want to say anything else?
After you take the vote, I'm going to make a 30-second.
All right. All in favor of the transfer, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries, and the transfers have been approved in the amount of $45,000. Henry?
Thank you. I just want to take this opportunity to introduce Angela Gencarelli to the entire Board of Estimate and Taxation. Angela joined us probably about 2 months ago as our budget and data analyst. She joins most recently with over 6 years of experience in the budget department of Greenwich. And with Angela Fogel's resignation, we have posted and we are searching for a new budget director. Our plan, Angela and I will present next month the list of all the proposed rollovers. So we will have data on actual fiscal year 21 results, department by department, line item by line item, surpluses and deficits. And as you know, our philosophy is that psychologically we try to reward managers who have larger revenues than budgeted or lower expenditures than budgeted. At the same time, we don't endorse a backdoor budget. If it wasn't approved in the budget, we don't want to do it through a rollover. But what happens is, for example, we've had departments who could not expend the funds because their suppliers' supply chains were interrupted because of COVID. And therefore the expenditure got delayed. Instead of taking it out of this year's budget, they would want to roll over some of the funds that they didn't spend in the current year. So Angela and I will review all of the results. We'll look at the recommendations, and then we will come to you with a recommendation next time for all of these rollovers, like we do every year. But it gave me an opportunity to introduce Angela.
Thank you, Henry.
Welcome, Angela.
Yes, welcome.
You're welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
All righty. Then next item on the agenda is the other business, which is a special appropriations for Rowan Avenue over Keeler Brook Bridge replacement project. Is anyone here to speak on that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, how are you?
Yes, hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. So just for the record,
Can
Anthony
we
Carr.
move it first, Ed? I'll
Sorry.
move it. Do we need to move it, Ed, or?
Yeah, let's move it, yeah. Would you like to move it?
I'll move it.
Troy?
Sure.
All right, it's been moved by Troy, thank you. Go on,
Excellent.
Anthony.
So just for the record, Anthony Carr, Chief of Operations and Public Works. The request before the BET tonight is for the special appropriation capital for $650,000 for the replacement of the Rowan Avenue Bridge over Keeler's Brook. On July 14th, again, this is the memo, so I'll just give you the summary or the highlights extracted from the memorandum. The Rowan Avenue Bridge over Keeler's Brook had exhibited serious signs of deterioration on July 14th, on or around July 14th of this year, following Tropical Storm Elsa. My staff was alerted by customer service and other residents who had called in and with their concerns about the condition of the bridge. So expeditiously, we retained Freeman Companies LLC, who is a structural engineer, bridge expert. They've also participated in prior bridge evaluations and inspections throughout the city of Norwalk, particularly our short span bridges, which are basically bridges that are 20 foot or less in length as defined by the Connecticut Department of Transportation. So, and a large span is greater than 20 feet. In some, once Freeman Companies went out and evaluated the bridge, they determined to have a partial failure, basically meaning that you cannot put any vehicular traffic over the bridge, and the bridge is adequate at this time to support the weight of itself and any overburden, meaning pavement or dirt or stone above it, but that's about it. Again, no vehicular traffic can be placed on the bridge. Since then, my staff and I have been monitoring the condition of the bridge. And yes, the pavement has exhibited additional cracking, settling, etc., obviously exacerbated by Tropical Storm Ida. So to date, we have, and this is inside your packet as well for backup, we do have 60% design drawings prepared by Freeman Companies LLC. We did have a meeting last week with the contractor who we will be likely soliciting the project to. And just as a sidebar, this work is not subject to municipal bidding requirements because of the nature of the work being emergency. So basically, it allows the city to engage with a contractor directly in a type of design build scenario where even though the contract documents or the drawings are not 100% complete, you bring the contractor in early on, usually the 30-60% level, and they give feedback, they give input. Obviously the contractors building it have an advantage of telling the engineers what might work better in certain scenarios than others. So we did do that last week. The results of the meeting were very positive. The contractor will be giving us a tentative schedule this week to let us know, most importantly, the fabrication time for the proposed improvement, which I'll discuss momentarily. So the existing culvert is a combination of a metal arch and stone masonry. The side, basically half and half, it's about 40 feet long. The upstream side, or the stone masonry side, is the side that failed. The reason why it failed is because after Tropical Storm Elsa delivered, I believe, it was over 4 inches of water within 6 hours, which was 2/3 of the total rainfall volume that we received that day, within 25% of a full day. The water level rose significantly high in Kills Brook, along with the velocity, the speed, and the flow of the water basically washed away or undermined the stone masonry foundation, I believe, on the northwest corner. And again, that foundation was likely loose prior to that. Elsa did not help matters and exacerbated a partial failure of the foundation, not a full failure. Otherwise, the entire bridge would have collapsed. So the engineers did notice that there was what you call scour holes, which basically means large voids and large holes of material that once existed there that was now scoured or moved to a point downstream. We obviously, again, going back to the design drawings, which now include a precast concrete box culvert. Basically, it's conceptually a 12-foot wide box, 6 foot high, 12 foot long, and the boxes come in sections and they basically are connected. They have joints, rubber joints in between to allow for watertight seal, and you put them together almost like Legos, but I don't want to oversimplify it, but they come precast. Now, the size of the culvert, the proposed culvert, it's very important that the recommendation from the consultant and the recommendation taken by DPW and brought before this board is that the size of the culvert matches the existing culvert, meaning that the area of the rectangle will be very, very, very similar to the area of the semicircle or the arch that exists today. The reason being is that if you make the culvert bigger, you're going to allow water to flow faster downstream, and which can have an adverse impact on downstream properties. If you make it too small or constrict and try to reduce flow downstream, now you create a choke point upstream. So in our experience, my experience, consultant, it was a no-brainer, and we all concurred together that the recommendation would be to, as you see before you, emulate existing hydraulic capacity, which just basically means match the area on both sides so that you can get the same water through and that there's no problems upstream and downstream. The construction, the wild card with the construction is the ability to get the precast concrete box culvert. As the CFO mentioned earlier, there is a long lead time and a longer than usual time for materials such as steel, timber, iron, and even concrete. The contractor that we are soliciting is a very, very, very big contractor here in the Northeast and does work all over the country. If anybody could expedite the fabrication and the delivery of the box culverts, it's certainly them, which is obviously why we approached them. And they also do a lot of work with ConDOT as well. So barring a longer than usual lead time, the actual construction would take approximately 60 days. Maybe a lead time of another 60 days, could potentially be up to 90 days. We are pressing and pushing to get the culvert installed before the new year. And then what we would do at that point, depending on how mild the winter is and a couple of the site conditions, we would put a temporary road surface above the culvert so we could at least open the traffic up for emergency services and for pedestrians in the area, pedestrian access, vehicle access. We'd like to get the road open by the end of the year, put a temporary road surface, come back in the spring, and then finalize the paving. I think most people would be happy with that. That is certainly our goal. Before that happens, a couple steps. One, we need to go to the special appropriation process. Two, We need to get Army Corps approval, which looks like it'll be very minimal because there's no filling in the area. We're basically keeping the grades and the elevations the same. 3, Connecticut Deep approval. Again, since the culvert is matching the existing conditions, and we're going to add some natural enhancements at the bottom of the culvert, which I alluded to in the memorandum, which basically mimics the existing riverbed surface. So what they do is they take the box culvert and they sink it 2 feet into the riverbed. And then there's little baffles or teeth at the bottom of the box. And you basically put river stone and you put natural materials in there. So it tends to slow the velocity of the water slightly in that area to allow for habitat, aquatic habitat, and also mimics the conditions of today's brook. So that needs to happen. So Connecticut approval, Connecticut Deep approval, federal approval by Army Corps. And tomorrow we have our second meeting with the Conservation Commission, which is likely going to be an approval, although I don't want to say that we will receive it. It is very likely that we will receive approval at the local level with the current 60% design plans. Again, we've been in touch with the Conservation Commission officer, Ms. Cerichetti. The commission is very well aware of that as well, of our plans moving forward. Again, the main driver of this project is going to be the finances, but also the lead time with the contractor. The contractor will again be providing us with a more tentative and up-to-date schedule this week, so I can report back at the end of this week, hopefully, with a more updated schedule to the commission, to the board. But that's exactly where we stand today. We're hopeful, again, that we could finish the construction by the end of the year, minus the finished road surface. The project itself involves excavation, dewatering of the stream. So in order to get the box culvert in, 2 big pumps, they're called bypass pumps, needs to be placed on each side. Again, the contractor is going to assist with sizing these, but just to give you a concept in your head that you can relate to, there'll be 2 pumps, pretty large pumps that will have to divert the water while the contractor puts the box culvert in, because they can't excavate and do their work when there's 2 feet of water, 3 feet of water in the existing riverbed. So that will be the bypass pumping, and the rest of it is just, I'll circulate a picture too of what the finished product will look like, just again for illustrative purposes, but it'll be a concrete box. They'll have wing walls coming out, basically 45-degree walls on the upstream side and the downstream side to hold back soil. And we're also going to incorporate some aesthetic features into it, like a stone foam liner, which basically means that there'll be an imprint of stone, whatever color we choose, on the outside of the box culverts. And we're also going to, instead of having a flat ceiling, we're going to mimic the existing box culvert and have an aftermarket or proprietary arch constructed at the top. So it'll look like the existing masonry culvert in every sense of the word, but it'll be newer. It'll last approximately 75 to 100 years. And once we set that culvert in there, there's very little maintenance associated with there. And also too, since it's a box culvert and has a floor, that avoids the need for having to go down and construct a deeper foundation, because the floor is holding the sides and the top up, which is why we went with a 4-sided structure versus a 3-sided structure, which would require deeper foundation and more disruption to the stream bed. So that in sum is where we're at. The road has been closed. We have received traffic authority approval back in July. Full detour has been in place and will continue to be in place until it's opened to traffic, even if it's just with the temporary road surface.
May I ask you a question?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Anthony. May I ask just a quick question? How much of this is reimbursable by the state or the federal government? It sounds like infrastructure, and it sounds like something that fits in the category of the infrastructure bill that the federal government's been considering, and it sounds like something that the state would have an interest in as well. So is there any reimbursement that we're looking at in the future for this project?
Our consultant has been tasked with finding grants that would be applicable. I know that the Congress is looking to pass the multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure bill, which I believe Connecticut's going to get, I think $1 billion of that infrastructure money. Aside from that, we did task Freeman companies to look into potential grant opportunities. As of right now, they have not identified any, but that doesn't mean that none exist. We still have time before we get our financial appropriation, before the contractor orders any material, but we're going to keep looking. And even if it's 10% reimbursement or 25% reimbursement, there wasn't anything specifically offered after ELSA. Otherwise, we would have known that already, but we are searching for additional state or federal funding aside from the $1 billion or so that we'll receive as part of the Infrastructure Act. So, Mr. Chairman, in short, we haven't identified any grants at this point,
Yes.
but we're working to.
Yes, I understand. Thank you for that. Are there any other questions?
Yes,
Sherry, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
doing that. There will be a temporary bridge installed first, right? Before you actually start the actual permanent? Because I'm just wondering, when will it actually be opened?
So there is no temporary bridge. We're going to go right to the permanent solution.
You are,
One of the recommendations included a slip liner, basically a prefabricated plastic, heavy strength plastic arch that you could slip into
Right.
the existing arch. But the problem is then you're making the area smaller, and that can have hydraulic effects upstream, especially and downstream. It will be a permanent solution. So once the contractor gets in there and demolishes
Right.
and removes the existing bridge, the new one's going to be pick and set. Again, these are heavy box culverts, so there will be a crane involved,
Right.
which will take the box culverts off the flatbed, set it down. But again, we are hoping to get the box culvert installed with a temporary roadbed by the end of the year. And I think that if the fabrication times allow and the snow doesn't start until after the new year, I think right now that's more likely than not.
Are there any similar structures like that in the city that you would foresee perhaps having a similar problem with? And
At this time, no. We did have so Freeman Companies did do an inspection of our 26 short span bridges, which is required underneath the federal and state program. And they did not identify any major issues with any of the bridges. There's a couple bridges that will be going out to bid in the next few months for minor rehab, but nothing significant as exhibited by this bridge. So we're trying to address those minor deficiencies early so that we don't get to this point. But again, Freeman Companies did inspect this bridge in April of 2019. We could provide the inspection report for background, but I did note it in the memorandum. They found the condition of the bridge overall in satisfactory condition, especially for a 100-year plus bridge. I think it was rehabilitated partially in 1966 or in the 60s.
Yeah, with the
But we
weather
don't
that we've been
anticipate
having,
this happen to any other
the
short
weather
span
that
bridge.
we've been having, though, it's possible that that will change.
It could change over time, but we do have a very proactive bridge repair program where 1 year we inspect it, the next year we design, and then the third year we construct. And that lines up with our 5-year capital program.
Thank you, Sherry. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, and Anthony Destroy, Jelleret. Couple of questions. Who is the contractor? You didn't say who was.
The contractor that we've spoken to initially is Chanbro Middlesex.
And how were they selected?
They were selected based on qualifications. They are working with they're working with Condot on the Walkbridge program, and we needed a contractor who is largely employed and is able to connect with fabricators very quickly to the point where if a lot of their bulk, Chanbro Middlesex is a company that has a very large demand from concrete companies such as United Concrete, where if they need to get to the front of the line or they need something specially made, those orders are typically expedited. So Chanbro Middlesex, two different contractors, but it's a joint venture between Chanbro is one contractor, Middlesex is the other contractor. It's not clear right now who's going to be the sub to who, because we only had one meeting with them, but they are the same. They are specialized bridge contractors.
And did you say because of that, there's no RFP going out? There's no
Correct.
bid process?
It's emergency work, and we're able to, under the city's procurement guidelines, to solicit to a contractor who's qualified to do the work.
And that company has the contractor has nothing to do with Freeman Companies, right?
No, they're more aligned with Connecticut DOT, which is how we know them, and engineers in my office have worked on jobs in the past with Chanbro Middlesex, and know of them. They're very fairly large, reputable bridge contractor.
And in your memo that you included in the package, I see there's a lot of work that Freeman Companies already did on this. Is that 650 include the work that they're doing for this project that you mentioned here?
No, it could be, but right now the $650,000, depending on where the estimates come in or where the final price comes in, which again, our estimate is at $650,000. Likely we will not need more. Hopefully it's less. But right now that requested amount is specifically for the hard cost of the construction cost.
So you mentioned the supporting documents, a lot of stuff they've done. Do you have an estimate of what that's going to cost for Freeman companies?
I don't have the number. I can get that for you. I don't want to misspeak or over or underrepresent the number. Maybe you're in the magnitude of, at this point, maybe between $15,000 and $30,000 at this point.
So that will be in addition to the 650.
Correct. We have capital funding available right now in the general bridge repair capital program. So we're using that money that we have available to bridge the gap for the design. And if the design costs are excessive and we need to use some of the money from the 650, then we obviously will. We're hoping that the $650,000 is extremely accurate, but obviously we hope it comes in under. But we do have the capital funds available to pay the consultant now.
Okay, and you also, in your memo, you also mentioned on page 4, you said the approximate time to get the bridge opened is approximately 4 to 6 months.
Yes.
Now, if we're in September, now you're saying 3 months. Is that what you're changing this to?
Right, because the memo was written prior to our meeting with Chambro Middlesex. So now we have a much better idea of the time frame. And I put 4 to 6 months in that memorandum to be conservative because we were not sure if the concrete fabricator would be able to expedite or if they're 9 months backlog, et cetera. But once we spoke to the contractor, we felt a bit more comfort in now saying 3 to 4 months and possibly by the end of the year. Again, the contractor is going to provide us a more detailed schedule, or at least a better idea of time frame, hopefully by the end of this week. We just met with them last Thursday.
And who gave you the estimate of the 650,000? How did you come up with that number?
Freeman Companies provided us with a budgetary number, and they used a number that was based on a similarly sized culvert in length and width, width and height, which is 12 foot by, I think it was 6.5 feet by 40 feet long. So basically a very similar project that they're working on in a nearby municipality. I don't know the name, it escapes me at the moment, but they are working in a municipality and they completed a very similar project. So they used that estimate. And then we obviously added in a contingency factor.
And they use that estimate, taking into account that the supply chain is has been affected by COVID. And so we're probably going to be paying a premium over and above what we would have paid a year ago.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we've seen on a multitude of our projects, including WPCA, whom I know all of you know very intimately, WPCA and Public Works. Our projects have seen anywhere from 15 to 25% increases. So when consultants are preparing their construction cost estimates for us, whether they're preliminary or final construction cost estimates, they're adding in a COVID-19 factor on top of the typical contingency that they apply. And that ranges varies on projects, but we obviously, rather than be more conservative than not, so they typically put in closer to that 25% number as a budgetary estimate, especially for bidding.
All right,
my last question is, Anthony, is your department able to do what Freeman did by declaring the bridge unsafe? And I mean, did you have to go out and get that information from them, or do you have the ability in your office there to say that the bridge was a failed condition, or do you rely on the third party? I'm not quite sure how that works.
So during our initial assessment, one of the senior civil engineers went out, looked at it, licensed engineer, came back, spoke to myself and the city engineer. And immediately, based on the pictures and based on the observations, knowing that the bridge was unsafe in some capacity, I made the overall recommendation to the mayor to close the road. As far as the actual structural evaluation, we do not have structural engineers, almost a subdiscipline of civil engineering. It's really almost like having being a general practitioner as a doctor, and then being a cardiologist versus a pulmonologist. I mean, it gets into a level of detail that you need to be super involved with and up to date on those codes. So I would say that at a cursory level, we made the decision structurally to close the bridge. We do not necessarily have the capabilities to do a full in-depth structural analysis that takes into account sliding, wind load, overturning, global stability analysis. I've done them in the past, but truthfully, having a structural engineer with the expertise that Freeman Companies has was the preferred option for the city and for the department. And it also shares the liability without the department making one specific decision. Now we have an expert also who specifically does structural analyses to concur or to provide additional information. But we don't typically prepare structural analyses on complex structures. Sidewalk, pavement, a retaining wall, that's where I say we'd stop. We do not get into bridge evaluation, inspection, or analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
You're
Carr. Is there no other questions? All in favor? Well, there's a resolution, isn't there? Is there a resolution associated with this or no? Yes, there is a resolution. Madam Clerk, would you mind reading the resolution?
Ed, can I say one more thing?
Sure, yeah, sure.
What I was going to say is, like most construction projects, once they go in there and start digging, there's a possibility that there may be something else, right? That would actually modify the budget, right? I mean, normally with construction, whenever they go in there, in my experience, on top of what you already know, there may be some other things that have to be mitigated before they actually complete the project. Or am I wrong on that one? Maybe you know everything that's needs to be fixed.
Yeah, I mean, we're aware that there's a sanitary sewer above the bridge culvert, an existing sanitary sewer. I don't know if that's shown on the drawings. It may be on the 60%.
It's shown in
Yes, and there's an existing there's an existing water main that we're aware of. So we are aware of the subsurface utilities, and we're aware of the subsurface structures. We have not performed any borings at this time. We're still again in the 60% stage. I don't anticipate for this project that we would necessarily need borings at this time. However, if the borings or the subsurface investigation is needed to characterize the soil for the consultant to finish their foundation design, which will be a shallow foundation, it will not be long because they'll have the floor, then we would take the appropriate action to provide what's called a geotechnical report of the subsurface. But at this time, we don't anticipate encountering anything that would go above and beyond the capital funding requested, such as contaminated material or severely deleterious material. I mean, the bridge has been there for a very long time, so that's a very good sign that the subsurface soil is stable and able to accept a much more robust self-supported structure. But we'll defer to Freeman Companies again if they feel they need the geotechnical engineering report to complete their design, then we'll provide that to them, or they'll hire a subcontractor to complete that work.
All right, are there any other questions? Madam Clerk, would you mind reading the resolution?
Mute.
Here I am.
Okay.
Page 14, Mr. Chairman.
I have page 15 on mine, and 16, but it's the one regarding
I
the
don't-
650,000.
Okay, I see. Resolution, approve a special capital appropriation in the amount of $650,000 to repair damage to the Rowayton Avenue Bridge over Keeler Brook and authorizing the issuance of $650,000 general obligation bonds of the city to meet said capital appropriation. Capital project 0921 4021 5777 C 0315. It might be CO. I don't know what that is.
I think it's 0.
0315.
Yeah. Okay, the discussion having been had, the resolution having been read, all in favor of the resolution as read by the clerk, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? I think that was a unanimous aye, so the motion carries, and the resolution has been approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the BET. Have a nice night. Stay safe.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you.
Next item, last item on the agenda, I believe, is informational informational stuff, beginning with Oak Hills. We have a report, I guess, from Oak Hills on page 41. Is there anyone here from Oak Hills or no?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, all right. So basically, I guess the bullet point that was attached to the spreadsheet, clubhouse renovations related to the restaurant are complete and in the final stages of the permit process. A soft opening will follow after all permits are obtained. A vendor selection has been made for continuous cart path paving. A significant capital project included in the fiscal year 22 capital expense budget. Work is expected to begin October 21. For July 2021, total rounds are down approximately 13% versus an all-time high in July 2020. Rain events and excessive heat days reduced the rounds in July. And the July rounds remain 20% higher as against 2019. And the financials are in July 2021, net operating income was on budget at 102,000 and ended with 520,000 cash. Revenue was 9,000 or 3% higher than budget due to lower rounds and other small factors.
That was lower than budget. I think you misread.
Yeah, I'm
that.
sorry. Yeah, I did say higher. Yeah, 3% lower than budget due to lower rounds and other small factors. Lower revenue was offset by lower expense of 9,000 or 5%. OHPA made, I see, the authority made $12,000 in repayments to the city. That's $2.05 per round played in 2021. And fiscal year 2021 financial audit field work was complete, and a first draft audit report has been issued. Once complete, once the report is complete, an annual payment will be made to the city equaling 1% of fiscal 2021 golf revenue.
Yeah, Ed, this is Troy, just a couple of comments. One is there was next meeting, if you could have somebody come, maybe Don, the general manager there, or someone explain to us that they would supposed to get back to us on that $2 per round and how they're coming up with the calculation. So that was from the last couple of meetings, in fact. And the other thing I just want to voice, I'm there a lot this summer, and voice my displeasure or disappointment that the restaurant is still not open. So considering the original date was supposed to be in June. The season is pretty much winding down.
Right. So it appears that in addition to the $2 per round, there's also a part of the agreement is in addition to that 1% of the total revenue, or does that 1% is that subsumed? Is the $2 per round subsumed within that 1%?
I believe that 1% is on the total revenue, and it's in addition to the $2 per round.
It's in addition to the $2 per round. Okay.
That's my understanding.
All right. Is there anything else? Any other questions? Okay. Capital budget report and year-to-date operating expenditure report and revenue report. Is there anything noteworthy about any of these items?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so it's just for informational purposes then, where we are. Are there any questions concerning any of these financial reports? All right, hearing none.
Ed, one other comment I just wanted to comment on. Disappointing to hear, I didn't realize Angela was leaving. Just want to say that she's been very helpful to us on the board here, and I'm surprised to hear that, and disappointed that she's leaving. Will she be leaving? Do we know where she's going, to another town, or is it we just don't know yet?
She informed us in August that she wished to resign and that September 1st was her last day.
Oh, so she's no longer here.
Correct.
I'm sorry to hear that as well. We wish her well in her next endeavor. Having said that, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries and the meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.
Good
Thank
night.
you.